a podcast to honor the gods.
This better come with a sacrifice.
Deus Ex Media.
Content and Capable acknowledges the Indigenous people on the land on which we record this podcast, the Turungurung people. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sovereignty was never ceded. Hello and welcome to Content and Capable. There's no intro music today because it's a bit of a special episode. I don't normally make things like this, but I kind of wanted to commemorate the special occasion because Content and Capable is 2. It feels like a toddler. Like it feels like we're not even close to being mature, which is, I would argue 100% correct, but I know other people who would argue completely the opposite way. It's been 2 years of making Content and Capable. We started around this time of year in 2021, and it's been such a journey. I went back and listened to last year's year in review episode, and earlier this year I had a bit of a listen back to some of the older episodes of Content and Capable. Please don't listen to them. They're not good. They're not good episodes. But, you know, if you're just tuning in for the first time and this is your first taste of Content and Capable, welcome. This is probably not the episode for you, but yeah, we're having a little bit of a look back on some of the notable moments and episodes and experiences I've had creating this podcast over the last 12 months. I like to do this. It's like a bit of a time capsule personally for me, but also for the podcast as well. Obviously, we're right in the throes of season 3 or year 3 of the podcast, as I like to tell people. We've had some really interesting guests, and I kind of wanted to give a little bit of behind the scenes as to why I've chosen the guests I've chosen this time round. And a lot of that is based on some feedback we had from some of the amazing patrons of the Deus Ex Media podcast on our Discord server. For as little as $1 a month, you can head to My Cabbages of the Eldest Gods or the Restricted section, and you can be a patron and interact with me directly and even speak about this podcast here, even though you're not directly supporting me. I don't have a Patreon. Unfortunately, not right now. It's not something I'm interested in. But I wanted to quickly chat about the guests I've had on. You might have noticed we've had a lot of Australian guests. In particular, Ashy, my friend Bianca, Leo, Bree. I think that might be all the Australian guests, to be honest. But, you know, it's been a big priority for me to showcase Australian culture. Too often we might have very Eurocentric or very American-centric ways of viewing our cultural lens, and I kind of want to shift that away and start showing people of diverse cultures. For me, that starts with my own backyard, to speaking to other fellow Australians, but that also extends to people of colour or people who might not identify directly with the communities that I identify with, or people who might have values that are at odds with mine. And it's been really fascinating. I've also dived into a little bit more academic subjects. So things like advocacy and talking about the royal family. Those ones have been really, really fun. Canberra as a vague concept, if anyone from Australia understands, Canberra is a hard concept to talk about just in general. We've got some exciting episodes coming up as well. People talking about a variety of things, still a little bit more on the academic side. Obviously, I really love talking about the arts, but it's not the only thing we have to talk about here. And we will definitely be chatting with a variety of people. If you have any guest suggestions, my DMs on all platforms are open. So definitely go check us out there. Looking back on the year that has been, though, it's been very fascinating. It's the first of what I like to call the 40 episode seasons. That is, I have 40 weeks worth of content I create roughly in a year. And I didn't quite do that in the first year. I did actually get about 3/4 of the way there, but because I started quite late in the year, we didn't actually end up releasing the episode until the first episode of the podcast until June. I was working on this, as you can quite clearly see, way earlier than this, back in April. But 2022 was that first actually getting through everything. And it was fascinating. I got all the highs and all the lows at the same time throughout, the whole year. There was definitely some really interesting guests, some of my favorite guests still, and some of the people I still speak to who were guests on the podcast, and that was a lot of fun. And it was really interesting. I definitely, towards the end of the year, started to feel a little bit of burnout. It didn't help that I also was finishing university at the same time, but now I'm a full-time journalist, so I don't necessarily have, end of semester or end of year kind of shenanigans going on. So I'm guessing episodes will be way more consistent than you probably will remember from the end of last year. But it was so much fun. I got to speak to people I didn't even think I would get a chance to. Some of those highlights are like John and Silas from Strix, who were talking about men's makeup and skincare. That was just something that, like, I reached out to these people because they were doing something pretty cool. I didn't even think that they would respond, and they totally did, and they were super keen to chat. And also Cam and Alex from Fiend Coffee, big shout out to them. They and I still chat. Cam and Alex and I still interact from time to time. I really love their content and their work. Bringing a coffee brand off the ground. And some other really interesting people that we made new connections with through the network. Radio Mike is a perfect example of this. He is Australian. He's now from the same state as me because I've moved down to Victoria. But he and I it was such a fun chat to speak to him. And even earlier this year, I got to speak to Josh, who was already a friend of Tina's, but it was a really quite a fun time to be meeting all these new people, and I've definitely made some lifelong friends that I definitely won't forget. Personally, for me, it's been a really interesting time of growth over the last 12 months. As I said before, I finished my university degree. I'm now a full-time journalist. I work for a local newspaper in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Victoria, Australia. A little town called Mansfield, if anyone wants to check it out. It's a really beautiful town. And that was a bit of a big life change. That happened right before the season started. And getting my head around that was a little bit disorienting, but I've definitely really enjoyed the challenge. It was quite fun because I then started recording from a new location, and really the location's a little bit better as well. I've got carpet on the floor and lots of blankets and bits and pieces everywhere. Plus I record in the early hours of the morning so I don't disrupt the rest of my housemates and bits and pieces. But yeah, this year is going to be so exciting. I've got so much planned. This will be so interesting. We'll have all the regulars back on as well. So everyone from the Deus Ex Media gang will probably bring on some guests. Let me know what guests I've already had on that you want to hear from again, because I definitely will reach out back to them and have them back on. I really love speaking to guests and seeing where their journey's up to. But yeah, it's been so much fun, and looking back honestly on the last 12 months as a podcast, I've definitely seen the quality, not just physically, but the quality in terms of the audio production and the values that I instill have really, really improved. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. Obviously, I'm not perfect, and I will definitely be continuously trying to improve myself, but it's a really important thing for me. If this is the first time you're listening to the podcast and you've made it all the way through this, make sure you chuck the podcast and myself a follow. Remember, I am on sam.the.journalist on Instagram and TikTok, and samobjournalist on Twitter. And Content and Capable is content, the letter N, capable on Instagram, and you can find it on Facebook. As of the 1st of May, unfortunately, this podcast will not be tweeting anymore. We will not be using Twitter as a platform. That's due to Twitter's failure to protect our communities, and we don't feel like we can create a safe space to discuss the topics and engage with the people we want to engage with on that platform. So we're removing ourselves as a network from there. You can find out more about that on the Deus Ex Media website. That is www.deus, that's DEUS, and then XEX Media, media.org. Go and check it out. Where there's a blog post that I wrote there explaining exactly why we've left Twitter and what kind of brought us to that final conclusion. But definitely thank you so much for listening for the last year, and I cannot wait to see what we get up to in the future.